Once upon a time, there lived a young couple named Linda and Raymond. They were the picture of love and happiness, kind, hardworking, and deeply in love. After their wedding, they moved into a lovely two-bedroom apartment in the heart of Enugu, full of dreams about building a big family together. But 5 years passed, and no child came. Linda visited countless hospitals, drank bitter herbs, and prayed at midnight with tears in her eyes. Raymond stood by her, wiping her tears and holding her hands, but deep inside he also felt incomplete. Their parents, once supportive, began to ask difficult questions. Linda, when will you give us grandchildren? Raymond, you better marry another wife before it's too late. The pressure was unbearable, but Raymond and Linda held on to each other. After a long talk one night, they decided to adopt a child. We may not have a child by blood, but we can give a child a loving home, Linda whispered. Raymond agreed. They contacted an adoption agency and soon met Zara, a 7-year-old girl with sparkling eyes and a soft voice. Zara had been born with a rare condition that made her legs too weak to support her body. She had to use a wheelchair. Her parents had abandoned her at the hospital when she was 2. But despite her disability, Zara had the brightest smile they had ever seen. She's perfect, Linda said, already crying. We'll love her like our own, Raymond promised. Life with Zara was beautiful. They enrolled her in the best school around. A personal helper, Auntie Remy, was hired to assist her daily. At night, Linda and Raymond would cuddle with her and tell her bedtime stories, laughing until she fell asleep. On weekends, they took her to the park in her wheelchair, and other children would gather around her because she was always cheerful and polite. For the first time in years, their house was filled with laughter. Zara loved her new parents deeply. She called Linda Mummy and Raymond Daddy without hesitation. Her friends at school would admire how beautiful her family was, and she would beam with pride. Everything was going well. Then one evening, after weeks of feeling dizzy, Linda went to the hospital and received shocking news. She was pregnant. The whole family was filled with joy. Linda couldn't believe it. Raymond cried when he saw the first ultrasound photo. Even Zara was excited. I can't wait to meet my little brother or sister, she said with joy. Throughout the pregnancy, Zara helped fold baby clothes and sing lullabies to the baby in Linda's belly. Finally, Linda gave birth to a bouncing baby boy. They named him Ethan. In the beginning, everything seemed fine. Zara would sing for baby Ethan and smile as Linda breastfed him. But slowly, things began to change. Raymond became too busy with Ethan to help Zara with her homework. Linda was always tired and irritated. She no longer had time to read bedtime stories or braid Zara's hair. When Zara tried to play with Ethan, Linda would quickly pull him away. Don't touch him too much, Zara. He's still very fragile. Zara began to feel like a stranger in her own home. Her grades dropped, her smile faded. Auntie Remy noticed and tried to talk to Linda, but she dismissed it. She's just adjusting. She'll be fine. Zara didn't complain. She tried harder to be a good big sister, but the more she tried, the more she was pushed aside. On Ethan's first birthday, the house was decorated like a palace. People traveled from far to attend. A clown, a bouncing castle, a DJ, and even a cartoon mascot were hired. But Zara had no new dress. She was not included in the family pictures. Linda told her to stay in her room because the place is too crowded for your wheelchair. Zara sat by her window, watching other children play, her eyes filled with tears. 2 weeks after the birthday party, Ethan caught a cold, but it became worse quickly. Linda and Raymond rushed him to the hospital. Doctors tried all they could, but Ethan's little body could not fight the infection. He died in his mother's arms. Linda screamed until her voice disappeared. Raymond fell on the hospital floor, shaking. The loss was unbearable. For days, they didn't eat or sleep. But then, just as Zara hoped they would remember her again, Linda found out she was pregnant with twins. The sorrow in the house was replaced with joy again. Raymond celebrated like a king. Zara was forgotten once more. When the twins arrived, a boy and a girl, the house changed completely. They moved Zara to a smaller room. Her school was changed to a public one with no wheelchair facilities. Auntie Remy complained, but they said they needed to cut costs. Now, Linda barely spoke to Zara, except to shout at her. Raymond, who once tucked her into bed, no longer looked at her. All attention was on the twins. One day, Auntie Remy received a call that her mother in the village was seriously ill. She begged Linda and Raymond to let her travel for 5 days. No problem, Linda said. We're traveling for the twins' birthday anyway. Zara will be fine. And so, they packed their bags, took the twins, and left Zara alone in the house. She was just 9 years old. She couldn't walk. She couldn't cook. She had only a few bottles of water and some biscuits Auntie Remy had secretly left for her. After 3 days, the food finished. On the fourth day, the water finished. By the fifth day, Zara was too weak to move. She sat in her wheelchair, her lips dry, her eyes burning, surrounded by silence and the smell of her own waste. She cried, but no one heard. She prayed, but no one came. When Auntie Remy returned from the village after 5 days, the first thing she noticed was that the compound was too quiet. No laughter, no noise, no sign of movement. She rushed inside and called out, "Zara! Zara!" No response. Her heart began to race. She dropped her bag and ran into Zara's room. What she saw made her scream. Zara was slumped in her wheelchair, her face pale, her lips cracked. Her dress was soaked and stained. The air smelled of urine and waste. Her eyes were half open, barely blinking. "Ah, Jesus, Zara, my child!" Auntie Remy cried, shaking her gently. Zara tried to speak, but no sound came out. Without wasting a second, Auntie Remy lifted her into the back seat of a neighbor's car and rushed her to the nearest hospital. Doctors and nurses rushed to her aid, placing her on oxygen and fluids immediately. "She's severely dehydrated and malnourished," the doctor said, shaking his head. "If she had stayed one more day like that, she would have died." Auntie Remy was shattered. She couldn't stop crying. She tried to call Linda and Raymond, but they didn't pick up. She sent a message. "Zara almost died. She is in the hospital. Where are you?" They replied 3 hours later. "We're on vacation in Calabar with the twins. Sorry to hear. We'll check in later." They didn't even ask for the hospital name. Auntie Remy couldn't believe it. She used her little savings to pay for the hospital deposit, then called the adoption agency in tears. When the agency officers arrived at the hospital, they were horrified. "This is not the same Zara we placed in that home," one of them said in shock. "What happened to her?" A nurse showed them pictures of how she was brought in. They couldn't hold back their tears. The agency contacted their legal team immediately. A few days later, Zara began to recover. Her strength returned slowly, and color came back to her face. But she didn't smile. She was scared. She jumped any time someone entered the room. She flinched at loud voices. She cried in her sleep and muttered, "Don't leave me. Please." Meanwhile, Linda and Raymond returned from their vacation and met a court order waiting for them at their gate. The adoption agency had filed charges against them for child neglect and abuse. Zara was removed from their custody permanently. In court, Linda tried to cry. "We didn't mean to hurt her. We were just busy. She was fine when we left." But the judge was not moved. "You left a disabled child alone without food, water, or care, and you didn't even check on her for 5 days. This is clear neglect. You don't deserve to be called parents." They were fined heavily for medical expenses and damages. Their names were blacklisted from adopting any child again. Still, they didn't seem too bothered. "We have our twins," Raymond whispered to Linda. But life had more lessons waiting for them. The twins' birthday was fast approaching, and Linda wanted to make it the biggest in town. She spent weeks planning, inviting celebrities, ordering cakes from Dubai, and hiring professional decorators. The party was held at a 5-star hotel in Abuja. It was aired live on television. Social media buzzed with videos of the glamorous event. People admired their wealth, the twins' outfits, and the celebrity guests. But the next morning, tragedy struck. Linda went to wake the twins up for breakfast. She knocked. No answer. She entered the room and screamed. Both twins were lying in bed, motionless. She shook them. "Daniel! Daniela! Wake up! It's Mummy!" Nothing. Raymond came rushing in. He carried them both and ran to the hospital. But it was too late. Both children had passed away in their sleep. The doctors were confused. "There's no visible cause of death. We'll need to run more tests," they said. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some said it was poison. Others said it was a spiritual consequence of how they treated Zara. "Maybe she was the angel sent to bless their home," one blog wrote. But they rejected her. Linda broke down completely. She stopped eating. She stopped bathing. She wandered around the house crying and calling names that weren't there. One day, she stood in the rain for hours barefoot, saying, "Bring my babies back. Take the wheelchair girl instead. Neighbors had to carry her inside. Raymond tried to stay strong, but he too was falling apart. He started drinking. He lost interest in work. His business partners pulled out of deals. Money began to finish. Meanwhile, Zara was recovering. The adoption agency placed her with a new family in Lagos, a quiet couple in their 40s, Mr. and Mrs. Okechukwu, who had no children of their own. They were warm, gentle, and kind. They treated Zara like a queen. They enrolled her in a good school with wheelchair access, signed her up for therapy, and even registered her in an art class when they discovered she liked drawing. Slowly, Zara began to smile again. She made friends at her new school. She had a safe room filled with colorful pillows and books. Her new parents read to her every night and never shouted at her. She still had flashbacks of her old life, especially the lonely nights and cold eyes of Linda, but she was learning to let go. One evening, as she painted by the window, Mr. Okechukwu knelt beside her and said, "Zara, you are not forgotten. You are loved, and you are safe here." She looked at him and smiled gently. "I know, Daddy." Months passed. Zara grew stronger, physically, emotionally, and mentally. With proper care, love, and attention, she began to blossom. Her wheelchair was no longer a limitation, just a part of her story. She joined a drawing competition at school and came first with a painting titled "Home is Love." It showed a girl in a wheelchair sitting in a garden with two smiling adults beside her, holding her hands. Her teachers and classmates clapped as she received her prize. Mrs. Okechukwu wept with joy. Mr. Okechukwu took pictures proudly. Zara was finally living the life every child deserved. Back in Enugu, things were no longer the same for Linda and Raymond. After the loss of the twins, Linda lost her mind completely. She roamed the streets some days, wearing her nightgown, talking to herself and shouting at children who reminded her of Zara. She would kneel on the road, weeping and shouting, "I'm sorry, Zara. Please forgive me." Neighbors pitied her, but no one could help. Raymond tried taking her to a hospital, but she ran away several times. His business collapsed. His friends abandoned him. Nobody wanted to associate with the man whose adopted daughter almost died in his care and whose twins died mysteriously. He sold his cars, then their house. He begged the adoption agency to allow him to visit Zara. "Just once," he pleaded. "I want to say sorry," but they refused. "Zara doesn't need to reopen wounds that are healing," the agency said. "Focus on fixing your life." He left their office in shame. One rainy afternoon, Linda was found at a bus stop trying to breastfeed a plastic doll. A stranger filmed it, and the video went viral. "She was once the mother of the year," the caption read. "Now she is broken." Meanwhile, Zara continued to thrive. Her new parents encouraged her to speak to a counselor, and little by little, she began to talk about the past. One day, during a therapy session, the counselor asked, "Zara, what would you say to Linda and Raymond if they were here right now?" Zara thought for a long time. Then she said quietly, "I would say, thank you." The counselor raised her brows. "Thank you, why?" "Because even though they hurt me, they also brought me to where I am now. If they hadn't adopted me, I wouldn't have met Auntie Remy. If they hadn't left me alone, the agency wouldn't have rescued me. If they hadn't given me away, I wouldn't have found my real family." She paused. "So, maybe they were never meant to stay. They were just a bridge, and now I've crossed it." The counselor nodded, eyes filled with tears. "You're a very wise girl, Zara." Years later, Zara graduated from secondary school with honors. She gave a powerful speech on graduation day. She said, "Some people may forget you. They may treat you like you don't matter. But that doesn't make you invisible. You are not your pain. You are not your disability. You are not your past. You are a light. And lights don't hide forever. They shine." The crowd stood up and clapped. Even the principal cried. After the ceremony, Mr. and Miss Okechukwu hugged her tightly and whispered, "We're so proud of you, our daughter." Zara smiled with peace in her heart. That night, as she sat by the window looking up at the stars, she whispered, "Thank you, God, for not letting me be forgotten." And somewhere in a small hospital in Enugu, Linda sat quietly in a corner, staring blankly. Raymond visited her every day, hoping one day she would return to him. But her mind was lost in the past. And as for Zara, she moved forward. With hope, with strength, and with love. She was no longer the child they forgot. She became the child who forgave. This is the end of the story. The moral lesson is, never take for granted the people who love you unconditionally. True blessings don't always come the way you expect. Sometimes they come in fragile forms, testing your heart, your patience, and your humanity. Cherish them before it's too late. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, leave a comment below. What would you have done differently if you were Zara's parent? Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next emotional story. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this powerful message. Until we meet again, keep your heart open, your mind kind, and never forget, every child deserves love. Thank you for watching. See you in the next story.